selector's screwed up. If I go to 20 meters, it goes to 6 meters. If I go to 10 meters, it goes to, what is that, 12 or something? I don't know. If I go to 12, it turns off. And I haven't even really been using those bands. They just did this. This is what happened yesterday, and I had to reset it to factory, and this is what people have mentioned in forums as of last year. So this is a issue that should have been resolved by now. It could be user error. We'll wait and see when it comes back, but it shouldn't get screwed up that easily. And when I go to those channels and then I dial in something and then I switch to something else, it doesn't save those settings. It's not like I can reset them back to something normal. They're just jacked up. That's the only thing on the actual radio, other than the speaker, that I am annoyed by. Problem is, if you get electric speakers and bring them into your shack, like these things over there, see those speakers? I have to turn them off because they'll pick up if I'm on 10 meters, they pick up. Am I gonna spend hours looking for speakers and then plug them in and to use for my radio, and then they just make noise, so I'll have to buy specials? I don't know. You get where I'm going. Use either my headphones or I use the speaker in the radio when I don't want to wear my headphones. And I think that if a $600 radio can have a good enough speaker, there's no reason that this radio, as expensive as it cost, can't have a decent speaker. I just went to start it. It's doing one flash, which means a fan malfunction. This thing's feeling like my camper all over again. Here's the bug with the transmit. Click on there, keyboard pops up, goes away. Oh, now it loaded. So that's interesting. It's a bug. If you click over here to the side, the keyboard doesn't come up. You click on the number, the keyboard works. Dog Park just sent me an email regarding the filter setting in the SDR software, and his response is, how often do you change the filters of something that's not in the presets during normal operation? Are you joking, right? Apparently he's still thinking of radios that have crystal filters. It's this filter and this is how wide it is and it never changes, and so in his mind that's the extent of the filter. One of the reasons you buy a Flex is so that you're not locked into something like crystal filters. Even the filter on my FT 891, I could use the dial and change the width. Really easy. So if I wanted to cut off the width, I just turn a dial. That's it, just turn a dial right there. And then if I wanted to bring in the contour filter, I just hit a button and turn the dial. Quick, much like turning the dial I showed you on the Flex. So to think that you're only going to use a filter to turn it off or on makes me wonder if this person actually uses a radio. You can scroll through it a lot faster with the magic mouse rather than hitting those little buttons up and down like I just showed you. That's not a solution. It's kind of like operating the Flex as if it was a FT817ND with a single sideband filter in it, where you just turn it off and on, because you're not going to be listening on the radio, hear somebody talking that's crossing over to what you're trying to listen to and have to go to a menu and slowly adjust the setting to get them out. You want to take your mouse and close that window or the knob. And I looked at the control settings, because you can get the Flex control and you've got things like gain and stuff like that, but there's no way to set filter width even if you have that control. Documentation for Dog Park software is, well, he put everything in separate pages, so you can't even just search all the documentation. You have to open a page and search it, open another page and search it. His responses are just, I said, other than the presets, is there any way that you can change the filter during normal? And his response was, how often do you change the filter during normal operation? Enough on that. It just validated that I need to finish the install. So I got it downloaded. It's installing Windows 10 and a VM on this old Mac. I don't know how well that's going to work. Knowing that the Dog Park software is out, if this doesn't work, I guess I could dual boot this into Windows if it's too slow. It's hard to say. It's going. So back to my issue with the persistent database. That is the section in the software that keeps track of all your band channels and what you were doing last in those band channels and stuff like that. I haven't really been transmitting anything more than 40 meters and below because that's all I can hear. But I started playing with other things on the radio, just seeing what it could do, hooking up the digital modes and all that. I'm getting RFI in my shack. This is something that I didn't think of, realize, whatever, or understand. We know it's important to be grounded. Just so you know, I've had Elmers tell me, oh yeah, just ground your coax. Like I showed somebody in the past where I basically had my coax coming out of my radio. The shield of the coax was connected to the ground on a ground rod, and then it kept going up to the antenna. That's kind of fine for an electric ground, I suppose, but really you need to have every ground stud on every piece of electronics ran to a central post, not anything that can create ground loops. So you have one point that runs to your ground, and all the radios have their own separate wires, like your tuner, your radio, and like I've got my MFJ noise canceller, all have separate ground wires running to that post, and then that post goes out to my ground rod. I have no RFI on 40 meters and below at all. It's really nice. I even got this thing to test it. No RFI. However, I do have RFI in 30 meters and above. And here's why. I moved to the second floor. I bought a 25-foot ground strap. I basically made myself an antenna. I've got to figure out how to resolve that. Now, I can shorten the ground strap. Right now it's 25 feet. I can shorten the ground strap and maybe take off 10 feet. So that'll bring it down to 15 feet. Even if I'm at the odd harmonics, 25 feet is like almost resonant at 30 meters, and that's where I start getting the RFI. Is almost a third, fifth, or seventh of any of the following bands. 20, 17, 15, 12, 10. They're all real close to the same area. So basically, 25 feet, it's not good. You really want your ground strap to be shorter than a quarter wave than the highest frequency you'll be transmitting on. That would mean if I want to go all the way up to 6 meters, I need to have a ground strap that is shorter than, from that central point, a ground strap that is shorter than a quarter of 6 meters, so 1.5 meters. If it's longer than that, if it comes into one of the odd harmonics, it turns me into a giant antenna up here. So essentially that's what was causing the RFI. I noticed when I did some transmitting on here last night, because you can actually see what you're transmitting on this radio, and I noticed it had splatter. And I'm like, why am I getting splatter on this radio? Really, really bad, like the whole spectrum. I was like, what? Because I'm transmitting right back into my shack. Scientifically, I've already researched it. I basically have an ungrounded ground on 30 meters and up. Not the fault of the radio. They can only take out so much noise, but I was disappointed that they did remove, and they're never planning on putting it back, the ability to phase antennas inside the radio. That was something that was in the 5000 series, and they verified with me they're not putting it back. My MFJ 1025 noise canceller, which basically is phasing, I can remove a lot of the noise that this radio can't. But then, if there's a little remaining, the noise blanker, just the regular noise blanker on this radio does a great job. I was really hoping that the wideband noise blanker would help me, and I could just get rid of the MFJ 1026, because you can't very well remotely control this radio if you have to touch knobs on a different piece of gear to be able to hear. The whole remote aspect of this radio, for me, unless I'm happening to be wanting to talk on just frequencies that the radio can happen to deal with the noise on, I'm not going to be able to remote control it. For a high noise situation, you're still going to need something like an MFJ 1026. So now the question is, does this radio with the MFJ 1026 produce better results than my 891 with the MFJ noise canceller? Is it enough to justify the cost? I still may not keep it. I'm going to go try shortening my ground strap. That might help me with 30 meters. It's probably not going to help me with the others because it's still probably going to be 15 feet long. But it's not like I can really hear a whole lot in 10, 12, 17 anyway. It's not like I'm really testing those. But if I could make sure I'm not getting RFI on 30 and 20, that would be nice. So it looks like it's asking for my region right now for Windows, and so I'll get that going, and we'll see how the software does. Even though I won't be remote controlling this radio, I would like to know how well it does using smartsdr here sitting in front of the radio. On another note, I sent some emails last night to the guy that I talked to when I went to buy the radio, and he immediately forwarded that this morning to the tech people. I didn't have to create a ticket. They got a ticket made. The forums, the people were there were very nice. Everybody is following through. It's a little sluggish, but I'll see if I can get it to perform a little better. I have all three pan adapters open, and I guess I can't have all four on the computer. I guess one is over here on the radio, like that, which is fine. The Windows version, smartsdr, does what I would expect. Like I say, if you're buying this radio, don't even plan on doing it on the Mac. Yeah, this is smartsdr. Like I say, you'll notice it's going to be a little sluggish, but I do have it completely wide open here. So, I mean, that's not bad. But let's go ahead and pick a signal. Let's go to upper sideband. And let's turn some audio on. Now notice how it does this two arrows. See, this is moving the line. If you go this, you just drag it. Now I've just made that filter wider. You can see it's a little sluggish on this computer. I may be able to fix that, but I'm not hearing anything. You'll notice here we can also control you got easy access to the EQ. Let's turn it off. And let's go ahead and close these off, just so we can hear what's going on. Let me give some more width here. Not sure why I'm not hearing anything. So even on this old 10-year-old Mac, it's got 16 gig of RAM, but it's still 10 years old, dual core. I'm running Flex through a VM, Fusion, Windows 10. I turned all the visual effects off, and right now it's actually in Unity mode, which means it looks like it's just an app running inside the Mac OS. This is with the noise filtering enabled. So I've got my EQ on. I do have my sound canceling as good as I can get it. I got a notch filter on. So let's turn the notch filter off first. I'm not using noise blanker. None of those are on. Notch filter off. Hear that whining sound? Turn the EQ off. And while there's a lot more to hear, I can turn the notch filter back on. And that doesn't sound bad either, so that makes it a little quieter. I got rid of all the hiss, which I like better, so that would be personal preference. And then you can see, unlike the dog park, you can size this. Really easily. Here's the notch filter, you can just move it. And then you just move your mouse up or down to make it thinner or wider. And then if you want to use it more like a contour filter, just say normal instead of very deep. And this will work more like the contour filter if you're used to a Yaesu. Like I say, you just throw that to normal instead of deep. Let's turn it off. Turn it to very deep. And I have my EQ settings I can control real easy. Let's make this basically sound completely like a normal radio. Now I'll turn my noise canceller off. Let's turn it all back on. So like I say, you can turn the EQ off, and depending on your preferences, but I get really tired of hearing all the white noise. So the more I cut out, the better. But yeah, I'm basically using the notch filter and just using the thing to narrow the band down just exactly to where I want it. And then I use the EQ to just polish it up a little more to my preferences for my ears. Basically, it made it from not bearable to listen to you still have to strain at times, but able to listen to. I ordered me today a artificial ground to resolve my grounding issue. It's a tuner for your ground, but it's manual. So once again, now I'm even more locked into having to be in my shack to use my radio. I think for me, I'm gonna try this first later on when I have more time, but I only got 30 days to try this radio. I want to make sure I know for sure I want to keep it, considering its price tag. In the meantime, I'm gonna get more familiar with the smartsdr, which the Windows version just rocks. It's a little sluggish, but like I said, I'm running it on a VM on a 10-year-old Mac. So running Windows 10 as a VM on a 10-year-old Mac. Also, the sucky part is I think if I'm going to run WSFTP or FLDigi or any of those things, I don't have access to the DAX or the CAT from Windows over to the Mac part. So that means I'm going to have to run those as Windows versions as well. That means I'm going to figure out how to integrate my logger. I'm not real excited about that. It's not something I'm looking forward to doing. I really like rumlogng for my logging application. I'm going to try to figure out how to just run smartsdr in Windows and then run everything else outside of Windows, but I don't think that's going to be possible. But we will see. If I do end up liking this, I think I will get that control device that's used with your computer. I really do like the knobs on the radio. I kind of also like the ability of what I'm able to do here on the computer. I'm still waiting back to hear about the keyboard issue, which I honestly think is not an issue with the radio. I think they just didn't realize how bad it is, and maybe people don't complain, but if I'm spending this kind of money on it, I would expect the technology to be polished by now. I'm going to try to tune in tomorrow and see what I can hear. Once I get more familiar with the radio, I'm going to try to get power to my other radios so I can compare them. I think the best approach is to get used to this radio and then just plug in the old one and see. I definitely don't like the speaker. And their response to that was, well, it's only 3 watts. It's like, well, the one on the Yaesus I have are only 2 watts. And they sound better because the way they are in the cabinet of the radio is my guess that they just sound better. The speaker that's built into the 6600M is subpar in my opinion. Of course, right now I'm listening on the computer but once I get used to this radio, then I'll switch back and see if I still feel like the other one sounded better.